Well, the first thing I had down was probably what is going to be the biggest movie of the year, which is Dune 2,
Yeah.
because I know we both have seen it. And so, what were your thoughts on it?
I loved it. I thought it was absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
You had a big problem with old Timmy last time.
yeah,
Or little Tim. But yeah, but obviously he fully redeemed himself, right? I mean, what are your thoughts?
not really.
Okay. All right.
I mean, yeah, I was very critical of him the first movie. Um, you know, ju- just for one, the believability. Like I feel like it. I can't fully immerse myself because I can't believe what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
He just doesn't seem at all like that guy for me. And while this movie was so great, you could overlook that more with Dune 2. It was still extremely difficult. And there's two big things that stood out to me. Number one, the chemistry between him and Zendaya was nothing. There was no chemistry between them. And like, I was not, that made no sense to me. I did not get that at all. But also the fighting, because he was at this point in the story a pretty badass warrior, and that was just ridiculous. I found it ridiculous, like specifically the scene where he like comes in like a badass after like killing the whole army to slay the uncle or whatever. And spoiler alert, by the way, but he goes in to kill him, and he like kills his army like no problem. It's like, that seems so far fetched. It's just I can't at all believe that this guy is doing that. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I can see where you're coming from. I guess I was able to suspend belief more than you were. I found him. I thought it was pretty cool. Like, I do believe. One person who had extraordinary believability and authenticity was what is that actor's name? He was the main antagonist of the film.
Oh yes, yeah, I know.
Oh my gosh, it's driving me crazy.
Austin.
Austin Butler, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I can't believe I freaking forgot him. I loved his performance. It was freaking incredible.
Yeah, he was amazing. He was so good, and I wasn't expecting that necessarily. I mean, not that I didn't think he'd do a great job, but I didn't know he'd be so prominent in the movie. I didn't know he had such a big part in the second film. And so
have you read Dune?
I haven't read it all the way through. I read like halfway through.
Okay.
But
how was the book?
It's great. It's just a little tough to get going with it, I guess.
Yeah.
For me, I didn't like it didn't do it for me right away, Like I was kind of struggling through it. Wasn't my favorite style, I guess.
Supposedly Tolkien hated the author of Dune, which is interesting because I think that I was reading somewhere or watching on YouTube that there's not a clear line of good and evil in Dune.
Yeah.
Which makes it very fascinating. Because there's no, like, sometimes good people will do really bad shit. Sometimes bad people will do really good shit. And it's like, it's extremely ambiguous. Whereas Tolkien, there is a clear good and evil. There is like, obviously there is definitely good and evil in Tolkien stories.
Yeah.
With all the books, with the Fellowship and everything. Hobbits, good. Orcs, bad, right? And there is definitely a clear delineation, but not in Dune. It's not as clear.
And Tolkien was critical of that?
Yeah, he supposedly he hated that.
Oh,
He thought
really?
it was misguided or something. I forgot what it was called, but I forgot what he said exactly. But they had some beef.
Hmm. I can kind of appreciate that, from Tolkien, because it's a story that's true to a lot of lives with Dune, that we all have that sort of internal struggle, but I guess it's like preaching about the way things are as opposed to the way they ought to be, I feel like maybe with Tolkien, he thought this is the way things ought to be. So I'm gonna display that in my working and give that as an example. Whereas Dune, perhaps someone could become misguided by maybe like empathizing with characters they shouldn't or something, or getting fascinated with the dark side of things, where it's not terribly healthy for some people.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought he was getting at in terms of his disagreement with Tolkien. But I'm not too sure. I need to look into it deeper. I do like the morality of Dune. I think it's very interesting, and I do like its ambiguity because I feel like that is much closer to people. You know what I mean? It's a lot closer to real, authentic people.
Yeah. It's really tough, man. It's really, I mean, I think it is, but then it's like, what is there to gain from that in story? It's difficult to say because, like, I think of like a couple things come to my mind with that sort of storytelling is like Joker for one, because it's very real, and the whole time you're empathizing with the villain, and you're glorifying the villain, and and in this story it's so complicated because in that story he is the hero,
Right.
and so it blurs those lines really deeply. And then also with something like Dahmer, where you empathize with such a villain, and it's like that, like for Dahmer, for example, I could not finish that. That, like, I couldn't finish the series. Not only was it the nightmares, because I was getting nightmares every night watching that
Really?
shit. Yeah, definitely.
What kind of nightmares?
With Dahmer, with Dahmer and with Mindhunter, I had dreams of people like standing over me, like while I was sleeping, and like I also have.
That's creepy.
Yeah, I also have uh like waking dreams. What, I forgot what it's called.
Lucid dreaming.
Sleep paralysis.
Oh, huh.
Yeah, I'll get sleep paralysis, and it's where you're like in between sleep and awake, and you can't wake up, and it'll feel like someone's standing over me, like.
Gosh, that's so weird, man.
Yeah, and so like with Mindhunter that happened too, because it's so intense about serial killers and stuff. With Dahmer,
how long did that happen? When you're dreaming, how long does that happen? How long do you feel? Do you feel awake, and can you like look around?
It feels that way. It's a bit bizarre because you're in between. Like sometimes you're in and out of dreams. So it's like sometimes you're dreaming that somebody's watching over. Sometimes you're awake and you have just the really impending feeling that somebody's there.
Ew.
And so the visuals get blurred with the feeling of it,
Ugh.
And so, yeah, like it's terrible. And yeah, but that was bad. That was enough to make me stop. But then also it's so hard on the soul. I mean, seeing all that stuff is way too rough, man. And it asks the question, like, one, is it worth it? Is it worth people watching to go through such pain and anxiety and difficulty? Or, is it worth that to get what? I mean, what are we learning? Why are we empathizing with psychopaths? You know?